A record number of women and children have been killed or injured in Afghanistan in the first 6 months of this year. The UN says nearly 1,700 civilians died during that period. It says Afghanistan is on course to see the most civilian deaths since it started keeping records in 2009. Well, Charlotte Bellis joins us now from Kabul. So, Charlotte, why are we seeing these record numbers of civilian casualties?
Well, a lot of this comes back to the critical months of May and June. Those 2 months really saw a spike in civilian casualties. They were the same amount as the first 4 months combined, and that really correlated with the US withdrawal starting in earnest. In April, US President Biden said US troops would be out by September 11th, so they really started picking up their withdrawal, and at the same time, the Taliban really started their offensive, and fighting picked up substantially across the country in rural areas. Now, another part of this report is that, as you said, records have been kept since 2009. This is the first time that no casualty has been attributed to international military forces. This is purely Afghan on Afghan. The UN saying that about 2/3 of the casualties came from the Taliban, from ISIL, from non-government groups. About a quarter came from the government itself. The rest were unidentified. Now, the worst incident in this report came from here in Kabul. That was the most deadly. It was a bombing at a school. We have the story now of one of the victims. Her name is Rayhana Nazari.
It's been less than 3 months since Mohammed Nazari's daughter, Rayhana, died. She was 16 and an identical triplet with her sisters in yellow. Rayhana wanted to be a doctor, but she was killed in an attack at her school in May.
I
was the first one to get to the bombing. It was really horrible. It's always on my mind. When I got there, it was chaos. There were screams, cries and mourning. There were fathers picking up their daughters, brothers picking up their sisters.
The attack on Sayed al-Shuhada High School was cited as the worst incident in a new UN report, tallying civilian casualties in the first 6 months of this year. No group has claimed responsibility for it, but Rayhana's sister has a message for her killers.
Don't kill your brothers, your sisters, because you're also from this country.
The bombing here in May killed 85 mostly young schoolgirls and injured about 150. They are among 783 civilians killed in Afghanistan in just May and June. It is the highest number for those months since the UN started keeping records 12 years ago.
The UN also says a record number of women and children were killed or injured in Afghanistan in the first 6 months of this year. In Dashti Bachi, the victims' names have been painted in murals on the school's perimeter where they died.
They kill the students, those who are trying to learn knowledge, they kill them. But my message in this part is this, that we students that just have one pen in our hand and no gun, no another things in our hand to fight with them.
I asked her in the end, do you think the pen will be stronger than the gun?
Of course. I believe in this.
The UN says Afghanistan is on course to witness its highest number of civilian casualties in a single year.
We need the parties to step back and away from the battlefield, because otherwise we do think, based on the data and the figures and the record levels that we've seen of the first 6 months of this year, that these will just keep increasing.
The Nazari family empathise with the thousands of Afghans who have also buried a loved one this year, but they cannot empathise with the perpetrators.
No, I cannot forgive them. My wife cannot. Rayhana's sisters cannot forgive. It's something unforgivable.
He says after Rayhana's death and as security worsens, the family is looking to leave Afghanistan. The UN is also worried, saying if fighting moves from rural areas into cities, the result could be catastrophic.
Charlotte, heartbreaking report there. Do people, given everything that you've reported, do people still have confidence in authorities to keep them safe?
Morale is certainly waning with civilians and also with the Afghan military, because the Taliban is just taking such large swaths of territory at the moment. They're now controlling more than half of Afghanistan's about 400 districts. And that's why you've seen over the weekend the US saying that they've increased their airstrikes in support of the Afghan military across the country, trying to slow the Taliban. And that was part of this UN report too, is that right now the Taliban has encircled cities across the country. The casualties you see are coming from kind of low-density rural areas. The UN really worried, the US military worried, the government worried that if the Taliban enters these cities and increases its offensives into more populated areas, in the UN's words, the results could be catastrophic.
All right, Charlotte Bellis there, live from Kabul.